What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the Death Stranding 2 review scores, go over what I think of them, some stuff that we learned through them, and look, I mean, I don't want to look too deep because heaven forbid that something spoils me. I'll never forgive them, but no, this game is doing insanely well. Just want to pat myself on the back, by the way. I nailed it. I said I think this game's going to get between an 88 and a 90. Now, it's ranged as all of these scores have come in, but right now, it's got 98 people that have done it, and it's got a 90, so freaking nailed it. And also, better. I mean, this is, you think about the first Death Stranding, I think it got an 82, and I think the director's cut got like an 85. So I mean, this is just, it's warming up, whether it's different people reviewing it or whatever, they want to be seen better by us, the gamers. I don't know, but I mean, it's got a much better score than the first game. So you look at the scores and your finger will actually kind of get tired of scrolling, and I genuinely mean that when you look at all the scores, because there's a lot of 10s. But I will say there's a lot of 9s, and then what I wanted to do, I read a lot of 10s. Any of the 10s, I just clicked, and a lot of them were saying the exact same thing. So I said, okay, I'm processing. Now let's go to the bad ones. Now, there actually are 2 6s. There's Kotaku has not given a score yet, but they seem to hate it, and which is not surprising. It's Kotaku. But you got 2 6s, 2 7s, you got 2 7.5s or 7.5s, and then you actually do have a bunch of 8s. But what's interesting is one of those 7s is actually saying that it's better than the first game. So it's like, this is again like an example. This is a game with like really specific taste. And I'm not saying like, hey, if you don't like it, you're like a terrible person. But I think that kind of sums it up. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, a 7 out of 10 is not amazing, but they actually say it's better than the first game. So would they give like the first game a 4 or a 5, right? And so, okay, in terms of the actual specifics, but without being spoiled, I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want you guys to be spoiled. Really, a good amount of them are saying it's bigger and better, right? One of my main takeaways is, I would say the difficulty when it comes to delivering and the difficulty with encountering things. So a couple specifics there. Number one, BTs are in this game far less. Now, that's interesting because you think about the first game, they are everywhere, okay? You're going to face them in the main missions, but you also face them just around the map. It's very hard to get around them. You'll see, your main objective, and then you'll see like the blue, radar, right? And it's filled. You cannot get there without going through BTs. Again, this is something that it seems like this is just a fact. This isn't like a subjective thing. It's an objective thing. It seems like there's far less BT encounters in this game. And besides a few main missions, you can avoid BTs entirely. So that's, it's interesting. And I think in terms of like how you interpret that is where you get the differing scores, right? Because some people say, well, it actually takes a lot of the horror and the fear away. You don't have that anymore. And some of that goes into the combat too, right? Because Sam is just better and you don't have to be so afraid. But specifically with BTs, like, well, they're not in it as much. When they are in it, they're very diverse and you have a lot of different ways of handling them, but they're not as scary because they're not as intimidating. And it's like, okay, pro con, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Encounters with everybody else. So, they remove BTs, it sounds like, but they put in everything else. So it seems like those samurais, right? Seems like they might be everywhere, because I see in a lot of these reviews they're saying, okay, to get from point A to point B, you are oftentimes going to go through enemies. I don't want to say fight, right? Because again, that is a seemingly pro with this game, is how you handle it. So you can do stealth, and stealth has been refined. There's like long range stealth options, basically I guess like silenced weapons, right? You can use kind of like a radar to, I think, Dollman, to scout your area to be able to see where everybody is. So that's an element that, okay, stealth was okay in the first game, not amazing. Now it's definitely been elevated to at least acceptable, right? Gunfights, there's more guns than there ever has been before. It's easier to use them. The bullets that you use are better, so they elevate that. So now, okay, now when you get into fights with all of these things, if you want to, that's better too. So, all of those metrics have improved, right? If you do get into fights, the gunfighting is better. The hand-to-hand stuff is better. The stealth stuff is better, and you don't have to do it at all, and that's better too, right? So like those things have been elevated. Now, sticking with that kind of topic, the one thing that I saw, and this really, because I read again like the 10 out of 10s first, I was reading a lot about the difficulty and like managing the terrain, the stuff that classic Death Stranding, right? In the lower scores, it actually was a negative. The difficulty, like it being too streamlined, it being too easy, and it being too or not enough like convoluted or complicated like the first game. That actually, to some of them, some of these reviewers, is a detriment. Now I don't know. I mean, because like some of the 10 out of 10 scores, I saw one in particular. I don't think this is a spoiler, so I'll say it. They say like the last 10 hours is like very long and very meaty deliveries, which actually is exactly the same as if you remember the first game, right? Really that mountain city when you're going through the freaking blizzards and the mountains and just all that. There's some deliveries there that'll take you 45 minutes like real time, right, to do it. So, and that's generally like 70-80% through the game. If you remember, of course, the last mission of Death Stranding, which I won't spoil. I mean, that is, that's the ultimate delivery, let's say. So it sounds like that's back. So I don't really know who to believe there. You know what I mean? It's like, well, at times I would have actually preferred things would be more simplified, right? But I mean, and there's like the factual things. We know the terrain is going to change with like the environmental things, the earthquakes and the floods and stuff like that. So everybody seemingly liked that. I can't wait personally for me to try to cross a bridge only for it to be wiped out by a freaking flood and me cry in my my living room. So we'll see how all that goes. But that's an interesting one. Like I don't know. I would prefer at times the delivery would be easier because I don't want to take away from what makes it special. And I guess maybe that's where some of the reviews are coming from. You don't want to diminish what makes this game a special game. But I don't know, if you want to open it up to more people, it is a game that I think a specific group of people like because of the deliveries. So I don't know, it feels like he streamlined it to try to open it up to as many people as possible. There's the story, and this is something that I only read like small little snippets. I mean, credit to the reviewers, they didn't go in depth, which maybe is a negative towards them. I don't know, depending on how you look at it. But no, I mean, the story, I would say, I guess it kind of ranges like the 9s and 10s, very much like it. Think it's better. I saw some that said it's more straightforward than the first game, while also at the same time being more complicated at times. So it's like, I don't know how that works, right? It's more simple, but also more complicated. I think the lower scores talked about kind of him throwing too many themes at you at once, but the thing is, the first game is so crazy, and I like that kind of craziness. So, for me personally, like, if the game is more simplified, I don't actually, like, if it's powerful, right? That's kind of separate. For me, I am looking for something a little bit more convoluted. I'm drawn to those storytelling devices. So we'll see how it lands with me. But it seems to hit people, a little bit differently. But overall, the story, a very big positive. And I would say the biggest positive, and I think in any score or any review that I read, is the performances. So I saw a lot of things talking about how good Sam or Norman Reedus is, that, his character felt a little off in the first game, which I agree with. I think Sam was a very slow burn, and whether that was Norman Reedus as an actor, whether that was the way, I think his character didn't have like the full on like completeness to him until the end, like when they really started to tell you who he was. So I think that had to do with it. But I saw a lot of people say he's very good in this, which makes me very happy. Fragile got a lot of compliments. Higgs, Troy Baker, right? And I also saw, Tomorrow, Elle Fanning, and then Neil, our snake impersonator over there. I saw, no, those two are supposed to be incredible characters here. So I can't wait. That excites me. I'm very ready to see what they do with Tomorrow. We've heard a lot already about Fragile and Higgs, so I'm very, very pumped to see what they do with them. So, overwhelmingly positive. I focus on some of the negative or the lower score. I don't know, like, are any of them negative, right? A 6 or a 7 out of 10. Technically, you haven't reached, like, bad territory yet. You know what I mean? But, it's interesting because it's not, a lot of people literally say it's a perfect game, which is fun. And then, you have a lot of the 9s, like I said. But, the 8s and the 7.5s and the 7, like, it's interesting to read, like, okay, something that's seemingly hit with one, like, again, the kind of streamlining gameplay. You read a bunch of the positive ones, and you say, oh, this is one of the game's biggest strengths, and then you read the negative ones, and that's actually the main thing that's bad about it, right? And it's like everything else is pretty good, but that's actually pretty weak. So it's a game that's going to hit everybody differently, and it's going to be a game that I think is still for a specific group of people, right? So, kind of hard to review and give a score to a game like this anyway, but I'm freaking pumped. I'll be playing it tonight. I'll have videos throughout this entire week. I'm ready to go. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.